guests in, and I'm buying time because I have to press all these buttons. And there we go. I think I did it. All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Daily Sigh. Today is Tuesday, May 26th. This is your Daily Sigh of Relief. And today we have AI royalty visiting, y'all. This is the single most cited human being on our calls, who I've actually never met. So, Jake, it's so nice to meet you. I really appreciate you being here. We've been going live. I've been going live every single day in 2026, and the person whose name comes up more often than anybody else, I venture to say, and somebody correct me if I'm pandering, but probably more than every other name combined, is Jake Van Cleef. Jake is a YouTube personality, AI thought leader, and is approaching the explanation of maybe the most difficult topic in the world in a way that's been extraordinarily accessible. And he's got a lot of fans on this call. If you're watching this live, feel free to come join us in the Zoom room. You can go to dailysigh.ai, join the free forever community. Would love to have you. You'll find the Zoom link in the calendar, or stay being a wallflower, but you won't be able to talk to Jake unless you're in here. So would love to see you on the inside. Super excited to chat with Jake. Jake, welcome. I appreciate you so much, man. Thanks for being here. This is awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. Can we hear me all right?
Yeah, we hear you great. You've got a lot of fanboys and girls in this community, just so you know. So it's going to get real awkward real quick. I imagine there'll be some like autograph requests and whatnot. I'd love to know, this isn't what we should be talking about, but it's my own curiosity, and I'm obnoxious enough to just grab the mic and do what I want to do. Uh, what drove you into this? Like, how did you find yourself teaching the way that you're teaching and creating the content that you're creating? Do you mind giving us the Jake Genesis story?
Yeah, let me switch over to make sure. Is this can you hear me well? I wanted to have my proper mic rather than my
Yeah,
web.
you sound great to me. Everybody
Amazing.
else, can we hear
Wonderful.
Jake okay?
No, this is a great question. I answered a couple times because I was in the Marine Corps for a decade before a lot of this, and they're always like, "How'd you go from Marine Corps to AI?" But actually, while I was in the Marine Corps, I ended up working on F-35s, F-18s, kind of avionics, cryptography, all that weird stuff. And I remember watching an F-35 pretty much land itself and start learning about kind of the automated systems that we were implementing, all of these things. And around the same time, this is over, almost a decade ago now, when I started getting into all of that. And I was just like, man, this kind of robot stuff is going to be bigger and bigger. And I'd always been interested in it, and I'd always wanted to dive into it. But I started kind of teaching and working with a lot of younger Marines, on like, hey, this is what electronics are like. This is, how you're going to handle the cryptography. And it was these huge, high level military advanced concepts that I had to make accessible to 18, 19-year-old kids who were just coming into our unit. Right. And so I kind of had a knack for it. And so I started doing it more, started working with like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, all these people, and kind of condensing these ideas in to get them ready to launch. Right. And get people kind of up to speed. And I really loved it. It was super enjoyable, but also at the same time, I'm dealing with the loveliness that is, the military, that is war life and all that good jazz. I remember sitting on the border of North Korea, and Kim Jong Un was launching his missiles over and all this stuff, and making a joke to my buddy like, "Damn, we should have gone to college." But this kind of aspect, it was cold and all this stuff, and we had some terrible things happen here there, and I just kind of was like, man, I want to go to the more peaceful side of life. I want to dive deeper into this. I want to learn more. I'd always loved reading. I read Isaac Asimov, the Foundation series, I,
Mm.
Robot, all these things. And if anyone hasn't read The Foundation by Isaac Asimov, I highly recommend reading that. It's an insane series, back in the 70s. But no, and then went to college, and the military was paying for it. And, same thing. AI was still kicking around. It wasn't super mainstream yet, but I was super interested in it. And I was doing political science, kind of law and theory. And I kept telling my professors, like, hey, I want to mess around with these language models, with these NLP, natural language processing. I think it's going to be really useful in political science and these areas. I think it's going to affect a lot of things. And while I was doing that, all of a sudden, beta for GPT 2.5 and GPT 3 dropped. And I was like, oh man, let me get into this beta program. And so I started messing around with it. Same thing, threw it at my teachers. I was like, hey, this is a big deal. They're like, nah, it's not a big deal. It'll be fine. And I'm like, are you sure? I think it's going to be a big deal. And so they let me do some papers, and I made some papers. I made the AI write some papers. And this is years ago at this point, probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe even more. I have to do the math in my head. And so I started seeing what was wrong, what was right, how to kind of get it to where it would say the right things. And eventually it led to the school being like, hey, this AI stuff, as a year goes by, is picking off. Can we hire you to train our professors on what
No
you've learned? And
way.
they're like, absolutely. And so I did a workshop, and then I did 3 workshops, and then they started paying me for the workshops. And I was like, whoa, I can get paid to teach professors at the school that I'm going to. Why am I not working with other companies on this? And so I kind of, I founded a company and started doubling down. And my main idea was the world of learning. What does it mean to learn when something exists that can take the tests that we are testing learning on, right? That was my main issue I was trying to solve, is like, okay, well, if an AI can pass these math tests, these things, what are we testing for? If we can't tell the difference between a machine and a human, I don't think that's the machine's fault. I think that's our test's fault. Our
Mm.
evaluation is wrong. Right? If a machine is able to pass a PhD, it means our PhD process is not good enough. We need to. It should be about pushing the level, right? And then of course, that dove deeper. I ended up going to get my master's of science over in Edinburgh. Started teaching professors and people there, and just really refining these problems, trying to build tools, build systems. What does it look like to create the new CS 101 for? I worked with a couple professors out in Edinburgh. And I don't know, for those of you who aren't familiar with the University of Edinburgh and its history with AI, but Alan Turing and a lot of the different communities used to work in that part of the UK, both with King's College and elsewhere. The godfather, Jeffrey Hoffman, who kind of created machine learning networks back in the 1980s, 1970s. He just won a Nobel Prize. He got his master's from the same school I went to. And so there's like a kind of deep history of AI there. So I got to hang around with all these cool people. But again, same thing. I kept hearing these alleged experts saying things, and they were hiding behind. It seemed to be gatekeeping almost. And I love academia. I'm a deep lover of being able to dive into it, but they kept trying to gatekeep all of these words and these concepts: agentic systems, machine learning, high level vector database, cosine similarity. Right? They're hiding behind the mathematics. And I'm like, well, what's the outcome? What's the output? What is actually happening with all of these? I even had a professor tell me that language models were useless. They're not going to be used for anything years ago. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, and I was, mind you, he was telling me that while I was actively like testing a model that I had built to do code for me. And I was like, oh, wow, it's kind of working pretty well. This is cool. Just need to fix some things and it'd be great. And so like I was seeing it work in real time. And I showed it to him and he's like, oh, it's probably just pulling from somewhere. And I'm like, I built it. I know what it's doing. And he's like, but it's not trustworthy. And I'm like, well, neither is a human half the time. Like, it's doing what I wanted it to do. To me, that's enough. So how can we teach the system so that we can build the error handling? We can build the processes. And I just kept doing that every day, day in and day out, until finally I saw what didn't work. I started working with companies. They started wanting to pay me more and more. I started getting, outcome-based ideals. And next thing here we are. I've got community. I've got a company that works with Fortune 500 companies. And then just started my media campaign like 3 months ago. I was like, let me just teach this stuff, because I kept hitting the same barriers. I'm working with, KPMG, Fortune 500 companies like Pacific Life. And I'm like, a lot of this, if they just came in knowing this, we could hit the ground running. So I'm like, well, the best, instead of waiting for people to catch up, I'll just put the information out there that helps them catch up. And that actually helps my company in a lot of ways. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the journey there. I don't know if that was too much, too little.
No, dude, that was beautiful. I appreciate that a lot. I love what you said about our bar isn't high enough. I think it's such a fun paradigm refresh that I've not been exposed to. Because otherwise it's a defeatist mentality that I think I've assumed. I think a lot of us have assumed like, oh, well, it's over for us. And to hear somebody say, no, dude, like just raise the bar. It's just a weapon that we can use and we can weaponize ourselves. I love that a lot. If you're watching this, Jake has a ton of content, but he's got this really beautiful school community called Cleaf Notes. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Perfect. Perfect.
Love it.
Yep.
And I'm gonna drop the link in both. I have it here in Zoom. I'm gonna drop it into the public feed as well. It's really worth checking out. The thing I love about your content is you really do make very difficult concepts accessible. And I'm gonna pay you a backhanded compliment. It bugs me to see how few subscribers you have on YouTube in comparison to some of the people that are teaching, dude. Like, you're hovering at 49,000 right now, and I see people in the hundreds of thousands or millions that aren't teaching a fraction or giving a fraction of the value that you're giving. And I was
Thank
actually
you.
exposed to you through this group. I didn't know about you. Somebody told me about you. Might have, who was was it Dylan or was it Grant?
Well, I get no
I'm gonna
credit
say
here.
Dylan.
Was it you,
me.
Wayne?
Dylan.
It was me.
It was Wayne. All right. So shout out to Wayne.
I think it was actually Brandon.
Was it? All right. Well, I'll let y'all fight it out. Either way, do you see this is what you have, Jake. There are people fighting over being the first one. But man, your content is extraordinary. So I'd love to know for people that are just now hearing about you, where do we start? Like, where would somebody begin? What's a good like gateway drug to Jake?
Absolutely. It's a really good question. And if it makes you want to hear even worse, in February, I had 200 subscribers. And mind you, I've been posting for 3 years. Granted, I wasn't posting like I am now, but yeah, February, I had less than 200 subscribers.
February of this year, February
Yeah,
2026.
yeah. I grew 45,000 in the last 90 days.
Wow. So you're a rocket ship to the moon right now.
I think everyone changed the algorithm, so it's like value based now, and so I
Yeah.
think I'm finally breaking through, I guess. And I
Well,
don't
you
do
have
a
as
lot
many
of like
community
clean
members as
editing.
you have subscribers, that's such a statement, dude. Like that's most people, it's 1 out of 100. I mean, you're basically per pursuit. I didn't mean to
Well, and I
interrupt
just
you.
launched that school community 2 months ago too. That the 32,000 people I have in there, 33,000 now. That's all within the last 90 days, 60 days, from just moving it. And now, granted, that's a lot of that because of Instagram. I do pretty well on Instagram, but even then, it's still the same thing. But basically, if you wanted to start, right, I have obviously in my community, I have the kind of foundation series, but honestly, the video I just recently posted, I think would be a really good one. Because people kept asking me that question. And so I'm like, let me just build one. It's called You're Automating the Wrong Layer. And I go into this concept of what it means to have dialogue, what it means to kind of dive into the structure. And here, if you want, I can share my screen real quick. I think I have it saved somewhere here. Yeah, right around here. This one, you're automating the wrong layer. And I go into this concept of like actually breaking it down to how I'm working. I'm working with a company called Field, Feeld, really interesting dating company. They use a lot of data, but they hired me to kind of figure out how AI should come in there. And I go into this idea of what does it mean to work with these tools and what does it mean to automate that workflow you create with them, right? And I have this kind of database or data process that I look at there. But then I also go look at how did we get here, right? Because 3 years ago, what I was using in these natural language processes, when I was chatting with them, we've condensed words to be commands, right? So every word has a command behind it that has 100 prompts behind it, right? And you can actually roll through that. The second video, which helps reinforce that, is what I'm teaching is just traditional software, right? I'm not teaching anything new. I'm teaching what's been taught for the last 100 years in software, but in the new form. And so how one line of Python triggers 12,000 lines of code. This is a good one because it explains how one word or one line of code is actually thousands and thousands of lines of code that we had to build out all the way back to the 1800s with the freaking Jacquard looms. We were making code out of circles and little cracks in there. So these two videos are really good. It's the same thing. We're seeing a new abstraction layer where it's not that we're replacing programming. We're automating parts of programming that used to be done manually, right? We used to have to manually code machine lines and machine processes, right? Let me see if I have a good example picture in this one. If you do watch this video, I do have a couple in there. I'll find that later. But it's this concept of like, hey, we're increasing the layer in which we're automating processes. That doesn't mean we just stop. Abstraction is infinite. Human creativity, this is my bet, I could be wrong, is infinite, right? If you look at what students were learning 60 years ago and what we were testing them on, what we are testing them on and requiring them today is so much more complex. To ask a student to have 15 sources 30 years ago, 40 years ago would have taken a long time. You'd have to go to the library. You have to use the Dewey Decimal System. You have to check out the books. You got to hope that the books are at the library. You have to send in a message to hopefully someone can email it or send it to the library. 60 years ago, not having email. But now you go on Sage Journals. You can get 15 sources in an afternoon. But we expect that. So we raise the level of what we're expecting out of a paper or what we're expecting out of the grade. And I think that goes across the board for the creative industry, everywhere else. Cell phones, all of these things didn't stop someone from being creative in the film industry. It just meant there was a new way in which to do it. And so that's kind of where I base a lot of my thesis is programming itself. AI itself is just giving us another medium, another layer of abstraction and automation. And what we're going to see in 6 years is going to be like the difference between 1990 to 2020, right? There's a huge difference in how we handled code and internet and things like that. I went on a rant there, so I'll slow
Bro,
down.
you ran as much as you want. I think that's why we're all here. I have a question for you, but what I want to do to the council is I'd like to open this up for questions. Dylan, I'd like you to go first after me because you emailed me a list of questions and they're all great. You got to pick one so we're not being too obnoxious. And then if you have another question, feel free to raise your hand. Zoom has this fun little hand raising feature. Click the react button and then click raise hand. And this is fun because it's going to keep us all honest and it helps me be a moderator. It's a role I
Perfect.
struggle with.
Perfect.
Jake, I appreciate your content because you're optimistic without feeling naive to me. I love Peter Diamandis a lot. I think he's a super good dude, and sometimes I feel like he's lying to us all. You know, when I hear his perpetual optimism, I'm like, dude, I don't actually think you believe that. Your optimism feels, what would you say, like fact-based. I am curious though, are there things you worry about? Like, are there, you know, like the breaking of the bridge that you're like, oh gosh, I hope this doesn't happen. And I don't mean to take it dystopian, but you know, given that you are so optimistic most of the time, I'm just curious.
No, this is a great question. So it's less that I'm optimistic. It's that I know if I don't pull that path, we will fail. We will have more bad than good. Dystopia, utopia, they exist at all times. I used to do war journalism, right? I used to be able to hop on a plane and in less than a couple hours, I could be in quite literal hell. I mean, it was as dystopian as you can make it. People were starving, people were missing limbs, 15-year-olds were getting sold off to the highest bidder so that they could escape the country. And they were excited about it because at least they weren't going to have to live there anymore. Right? I looked these people in my eyes. And this was before AI, right? This world has already exists in a terrible way, but equally so, when I was in those places, there was people and foundations coming in and building out, how can we get these people adopted? How can we get money and food to these people, right? In the worst environments, you can find people who have their heart open in hell, right? And there's a beautiful, beautiful non-AI thing by Ram Dass, where he says how to keep your heart open in hell. And I highly recommend to do a YouTube search of that later. It's a really wonderful it's like 10 minutes and it's just really beautiful. But
Will
it's
you
not
say
that
that
I'm
again? It's Ram Dass saying what?
Ram Dass, heart open in hell.
Heart
How to
open in
keep your
hell.
heart open in hell. It's a very wonderful speech about just kind of navigating the harder parts of reality. I think
Found it here.
the actual YouTube video, yeah, is by After School, How to Keep Your Heart
Yep.
Open in Hell by Ram Dass, 13 minutes, 45 seconds. But it's not that I'm optimistic about AI. In fact, I'm extremely pessimistic about most of its areas. My main research paper that I did while I was at the University of Edinburgh was on kind of the idea that we actually here I'll share and I'll drop the link in here. This is I went and tested authoritarianism and data bias inside of a lot of the top models, and I found that a lot of the control, the psychometric control, the psychological control that the large companies have over the data sets, you end up getting a crazy level of bias and control, not just from a standard side of it, but a pattern. Like the AI models themselves are more willing to fall to a certain bias just by how they're trained. And in my opinion, and again, I'm not going to, it'll take me about 20 minutes to describe what this chart is, but just if you get a chance to read this paper, it's an interesting read. But it basically comes down to this idea that it's not just about, oh, hey, I ask the model a question. It says, oh, I'm racist, right? It's not going to tell you that. It's not going to do it naturally. It's not going to say I'm fascist. It's not going to do these things. You're going to ask it to build policy. You're going to ask it to write memos for you. You're going to ask it to write code. And over the course of hundreds of interactions, that bias will slowly show itself. And by then it's too late, because that's exactly what we do as humans. We have systemic bias across all of our realities and processes. And so in my opinion, one of the biggest problems with AI is how humans are problems with themselves. We are amplifying every part of us. That includes the bad parts. I've got best friends right now who are, doing operations in different countries here, there, in Ukraine and Syria and whatnot. And I mean, the process of drones, finding RF frequency energies, being able to just have a huge robot warfare, that's already happening. That's not a distant future. So in my opinion, the only way to counteract that is the opposite, is you build something with these same tools. In the same way we have nuclear energy, we had the nuke. In the same way that people are using cell phones to manipulate populations, we're also using it to share art and ideas and money. And the only way you can counteract something that's bad is to create something as good. By you're constantly trying to search for destruction, you're going to end up becoming the evil that you seek to stop, in my opinion. Maybe I could be wrong there, but yeah, for me, it's I'm not naive enough to sit here and say there's not terrible, terrible things happening with it currently, and that it won't. My argument is we have to build the good version of it. We have to pull that average the other way to create that counteraction, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a
So it's
beautiful
almost,
writer downer. The only way to counteract something bad is to create something good. I love that a lot.
yes.
Yeah, that's lovely. I will say Dylan just resolved the issue too. Wayne was our Jake Gateway. So Wayne, shout out to you. Appreciate you, brother. This is awesome. Dylan, you're up. What's your favorite of your 14 questions? And maybe we'll circle back to you. Actually, before Dylan goes, y'all, I gotta say something. You don't get to interface with thought leaders this way, this directly. Don't be shy. Throw your hand up because I think you'll regret not doing it. So for whatever it's worth, set whatever fear might be lingering aside, because I think there's a big opportunity here. Otherwise, you could just be watching a YouTube video. That's why we show up live. Dylan, you're up. Neil, you're on deck.
Yeah, I didn't name him, but my notorious Iron Man suit analogy was based on Jake Van Cleef's philosophy that the folders are like different Iron Man suits that the agent steps into. But thank you for joining us, Jake. One of my 14 questions. In your paper, you describe concepts of a debugger for the ICM system, and they all sound like very promising. Has there been any development on that? Do you know of any experiments that are going on or things to yourself?
So this is a really great question. I just had my VIP call this weekend with a big part of my community where we shared what we've been building. So what we've actually been building is an entire Azure backend database that allows people to upload their ICM workspace, almost like Versal or Supabase would take your GitHub. It's taking your folder structure and allowing you to have an environment that can be deployed anywhere, right? And so my idea behind that was, within that, you then create a system for debugging, for looking for these issues that's based on use case. So right now, a lot of AI systems are looking at like simulation testing, fake testing. Okay, we have this structure. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar with my structure, basically it's based off of Unix, which is this methodology back in the 70s, which has led to what you have folders on your computer. And if you were to break them down, the way in which an AI reads through systems and gets context, it's just all these crazy agentic systems are just adding context to its context window. So no matter how it's getting its context window, it doesn't really matter as long as it's getting there at the right time and at the right pace, depending on what you need. And so my idea was, well, wait a second. As long as we can create these layers of instructions, right? I have a markdown file, or I have a series of sentences, or I have scripts that can essentially trigger at certain times as the AI is going through the folder structure. I can get rid of all of that extra infrastructure. Now, the problem with that is you need to be able to debug English language, the meaning behind the English language. And one interesting one that we've been doing, which I share in that YouTube video, is called Substrate. And so what we've been trying to do is create huge understandings. Let me actually create a new one. So imagine this on the left here, and you can see my screen, right? This on the left here is a conversation, and I'm having it about code that I want to build. This is a very simplified version for this example, but I'm having a conversation with an agent, and certain statements here might be calling certain commands. The agent might be doing certain things inside of my code base. As I'm tracking this, the English language has a methodology. It has math behind it. We can actually extract that out of the sentence. This is all of these different little boxes we're seeing here are statements. We have a goal statement. We have a constraint that we're specifically saying, hey, what about the original code? That could be a constraint statement. What is saying there? And that's just from the user side. When we're actually looking at the model, The model is going to be making assumptions or have questions. It might create sub goals itself. You can track all of these deterministically and create some sort of process of, hey, this is how many constraints we want. This is essentially an abstract syntax tree, but for English language and our conversations, which for those of you who are unfamiliar with Python or anything like that, you use an abstract syntax tree to pretty much like decide when and how something is going to be told. Like you have a model, you have a function name, you call that function, you create the syntax tree to then translate it to lower levels of programming language. You can technically do the same thing with language as long as you have a structured or predictable process of what that language most likely will be. And if you actually look at, let's see right here, I'm going to bring down modern day markdown files and things like this. This is very structured English language, very structured how we're talking to it. And the way in which I have a conversation with the AI about this markdown language is very structured. So the more we can capture the structure behind the conversation, the more you can create what one would say is deterministic outputs. You want to be careful though, because at a certain point, once you hit such a deterministic processes and it's the same thing every time, you might as well stop using the AI and instead build a software that's just on C# or Python. So it's this back and forth process of offloading Markdown English into something that would look more like code. And that's where we're kind of rolling in. And we've created a deployment platform that hopefully will work with it. And then we're going to be sharing this right here, Substrate. We'll be sharing open source, hopefully within the next week or two when we're done dealing with security issues we found in it. But does that kind of answer your question? I went off the rails a little bit there, but
No, keep going off the rails. Absolutely. Yeah, that's really cool. I did see that in the video. I didn't make the connection when I read the paper, but I'm excited to play with that when it comes out. I thought your concept of a breakpoint in a markdown file was particularly clever. Whenever I read that, I went, oh, like,
right.
But yeah, this is much more
It's
sophisticated.
it's the idea, because here's the thing is like you don't have to have it read the whole markdown file. Anthropic already is doing that with skills. It only reads the first 4 lines if it needs it. But why are we doing it only for the first 4? Why don't we extract parts of the lines as you need it, or have some sort of, like you said, a stopping point, right? For those of you who maybe not be as big programmers, if you're programming in C#, Python, or whatever it is, you can hit up breakpoints as in, hey, run all the code up until this point and then stop so then I can observe or see what's going on. And I really think we've created a new abstraction, right? Imagine if every English word ran 10,000 lines of code. What would you do with that? How would that work? And it's what happened back in the 1950s with Grace Hopper, right? She just mapped what certain machine code would be to a more English word, right? Well, and they were more shortenings of an English word. But yeah, I'm so glad that that's making sense to you. And I wish David was on this call too, because David McDermott, the co-author in the paper, he's been building a lot of cool stuff with me, and he's very brilliant in that space too. But yeah, thank you. No, it's really great questions, Dylan, and I'm glad
Thank you. I
appreciating
appreciate it.
Neil, you're up. Jason, you're on deck.
In case you think he's joking, I'm 100% confident there are 13 more.
Dude, I have the email. He emailed me ahead of time. He's like, here's all the questions that we have for Jake.
That we have. All right. Yeah, so Jake, obviously I was exposed to you on this call, and I went through your foundations course on the school, and I thought it was really, really solid. The thing that strikes me as actually the most important part of your system is consciously building in feedback into whatever process you're trying to do, so that it learns over time, and building the origin prompt in a way to expect that feedback and then not ignore it. And so I went to college. I got a degree in electrical engineering many years ago, and it's classic control systems kind of stuff. So I was wondering, how that sort of engineering perspective informs the stuff that you do.
So this is super funny. David and myself both started in physical electrical work, not software wise. So David actually got his master's in electrical engineering. And then of course I was on, actual wiring. I worked on waveguides. So any sort of like RF frequency kind of nitrogen filled waveguides. And then I worked on just, your standard RF lines, coax, duax, triax, things like that. And a lot of the times you have these feedback loops for errors, right? You have MSP codes, you have these little things that trigger only when it's not when the system is broken, it's when the system doesn't recognize a signal, or there's a new signal, or there's lack of signal. And when we were looking at it all, it was like, well, wait a second. Every time I look at an output, I'm recognizing something I don't like. I have the intuition. And that's the other big part of this is a lot of companies, and this is an opinion, this is a risk that I am taking. I want everyone to take this lightly. I believe human in the compute layer, as in human in the loop, is not just an ethics thing. It's not just a responsibility thing. It's a computation, right? If you can ensure that you are part of the process of these systems, again, you're abstracting, you're raising the bar, we can go in and say, oh, that output seems a little off. Let me inject a little bit of chaos or a little bit of my opinion in there. And as long as that system can run with that and continue with that, you're kind of allowing that option. And all electrical engineering, all the way back to IBM, there's always opportunities, whether it's a little LED flashing on a system, letting you know something's wrong on your motherboard, all the way down to huge error codes that you can reference to a code book. It was designed to understand, to run without a human, but understand that a human would fix it better than itself, for less cost, less time, less effort. And I think we're forgetting that is having a human in the loop is actually more efficient electrically, computationally, not just cool and efficient for ethics, which is important. I'm not lowering that down. But it's like, if I can automate a whole company, and this is a bigger scheme, I'm kind of going off the rails on this one. Why would I not want to give every single one of my employees that company? Why would I fire them? Why would I not give each of them their own company and then create a whole new company on top of that? Because they'll say, oh, well, there's caps to the market. Not really. Human desire is infinite. What we wanted 100, 200 years ago, they wouldn't even imagine to having the luxuries that some of us have paid for or want right now, right? And I think what we consider luxuries now may become standard rights in another 10, 20, 30, 100 years. And what we desire will be more because there's more movements there. So at the end of the day, to roll back to your question, because I'm going off the rails there, is it informed it a lot. I think systems engineering, pattern matching, understanding the flow of how things work is extremely important because that's all computing, right? We took these insane non-deterministic electrons, built systems and error handling around them so that they could go back and forth and we could create a command with it, and just did that thousands and thousands of times until we ended up to where we are today with Python and Rust and C# and all of these kind of, and well, now AI language models, and machine learning as well. There's other things out there other than LLMs, but does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. That's great. And just as a point for the crowd, the human brain is orders of magnitude more efficient at compute than AI is.
Yes.
It's not scalable the same way.
Not my
Exactly.
brain, but I'm glad y'all think that. Jason, you're up. Jacob, you're on deck.
Jake, thanks for being here, giving us your irreplaceable time there, Devil Dog.
Yut.
Hi there, low. I have a different question. I've been paying attention to the Bible verses on your dry erase board.
Absolutely.
And I have been trying to crack the code on Matthew 7:7, Ecclesiastes 4:9, Proverbs 25:2, Proverbs 27. Okay, now I'm going to cheat on the last one, but I think you see where I'm going with that, right? And
Yes.
that I have been trying to piece them together. I put something finally today into AI about pattern recognition, but I want to hear yours to see if AI got it right.
This is awesome. So yeah, those are not random scripture. And for those of you who are curious, I spent months traveling across the Middle East. I went on foot from Egypt all the way up into Jerusalem, across into Babylon. And I can read and write Aramaic. I spent years in college studying ancient Aramaic and translating the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm a very big fan of Abrahamic scriptures, all the way from First Testaments to even older versions of it, all the way up into even kind of more modern surahs in Islam and whatnot. I kind of love watching that train because there's so much math involved with some of the ancient languages. I mean, the entire alphabet of Hebrew and Aramaic maps to math. And I just find it's beautiful. You add on the layer of human understanding, what scripture means, the meanings behind it, the stories that can be taught, the lessons that can be learned. It's just such, again, it's just like mathematics and software. It's layers and layers deep. The infinite, what was it? I can't remember. It was a physics. He was a quantum mechanics guy. I forget his name, but he says the first sip of science makes you an atheist. The last drop, you see God staring at you. And I always thought that was a funny thing, is you end up staring at the infinite no matter how deep you go into something. But at the end of the day, I've been choosing those ones, and I'm about to choose another set for this week because all of them are based around two concepts. Every time I have the same two concepts on there, which is you need someone else. It's not just you. And it is, all the answers are there, but that does not matter. We are the ones that have to ask these questions. We must dive deeper. All of these secrets and processes and these things, it is the action of working with others to come to our own conclusions, to ask the right questions, where we end up finding the most absurd purpose in life, right? That is, yes, Heisenberg. Thank you for sharing that in chat. I appreciate that. And to me, I like sharing scripture in a way that is, just tastable, something you have to, those who seek shall find, right? But at the same time, I want it to mean something, right? It's not just scripture. It's not just Christianity. It's something deeper than that. It's something much more than that. These are writings by people and by thoughts and by mass consciousness in a way that attached problems we're asking today. That's the point. It's the same person that was writing those and putting those down on ink and retranslating them and writing them again was having the same questions that we do today, but in a different place, in a different era. And yeah, it's almost in the beginning, Bereshit Elohim bara v'chashayim, right? In the beginning, it's actually funny enough, Bereshit could be translated into in a beginning, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. There's an interesting one. The first line of the First Testament, the Bible, in ancient Aramaic. But yeah, it comes down to this concept of we have to ask the questions, but we have to ask them together. And I think that's kind of a big part of it. But I'm curious, what did the AI come up with? What kind of pattern matching did it find? It might be something different.
Absolutely. So here's a screenshot right here. And while you wait for that, I just need to know Hollywood Marine or Swamp. Choose wisely.
Paris Island. Island. I'm
hey,
sorry if
there you go. Camp Lejeune, the armpit of America. Toe, try, take toe.
Yep.
There you go.
Plenty. And I did it during winter, so I didn't have to worry about the sand fleas as much, but I was frozen half the time through when we
I was a Greenside corpsman in my enlisted life. That's why I asked that.
Thank you. Corpsmen were some of my favorite people, hands down. Saved my ass a couple times. I've had a couple barracks side what do we call it? Fluid injections where they hook them up to the fan in the room. And
yeah. So there's the output there. And I don't want to hog the time, but gratitude. Thank you, brother. Cheers.
Thank you. Much love. Bless to you, man.
I want to hear Jake go off on the religious studies. I don't know about y'all, but Jake, is there somewhere we could listen to or hear or read more about your philosophical leanings?
Yeah, there's a couple spots. There's actually a hidden website, not hidden so much. I just don't. It was one of my first ever websites I made. It's called Van Cleef. It was my Van Cleef Media website. But instead of linking you the website, I'm going to share some of my older stuff there. And mind you, some of them still years ago when I was younger, when I was writing them. And I was messing around. Some of them are like fully AI written. Some of them I wrote myself entirely. That was a fun one. This was a good one where I was trying to convince GPT-3 that it was conscious. But one that I think you all may enjoy, Journey of Tomorrow is a good one. I wrote on just kind of what it means to kind of journey beyond that. What we have here, there is peace in the Middle East and the Jordanian reflections. That was me traveling across Jordan. And you can see these are the 3 IDs or 2 IDs I had. And then what I looked like. Everyone would stop me at the border asking if I was a spy. And I'm like, nah, dude, I'm just hanging out. But one that I would love to share, which I thought it was around here. I wrote for anyone who's familiar with the story of Legion, when Jesus comes upon the shores and finds a man and he says, "We are Legion." Here we go. I wrote a story from Legion's perspective. And it's kind of what it's like to be stuck inside of addiction and pain. It's a very short, just a very quick thing. So if anyone wants to dive into that, I don't have too much, I guess, on like videos and whatnot. I probably should write a lot more in that area. Maybe I think I wrote a bit in my governance project on it. But I probably should do a bit more there, in terms of, you know, those processes, because there's a lot. I mean, I have papers upon papers, where I've done that. Yeah, I guess in my Substack too, there's a couple here or there, that I dive around and mess around with. But you know, just because if you all want that, I have hundreds of writings that I could publish tomorrow. That's all sitting on my computer. Actually, for those of you who aren't familiar, I don't know if you know Overleaf, but I have just writings and writings and writings. All of these are, you know, very large projects that I've been writing forever. Actually, my most recent one, this will be a book soon. It's called Rise of the Virtual Vanguard. I'm kind of upset that we don't have any like Adam Smith or Rousseau style treatise, of our current day. So I'm writing a kind of absurd one for that right now, which I'm adding a religion section actually, as we speak. So we'll see. This will come out. I think I'm at 65 pages now. I'm not putting this out till it's over 100, but lots of it's not written by AI. Some of it is, and then I redo it. You know how that game is. I don't need to describe that to you all, but definitely to see from the eyes of Legion, I think would be an interesting one if you're trying to dive into that world.
I have both of those open. Thank you for sharing that, man. That's very, very kind of you. Jacob, you're up. Wayne, you're on deck.
Yeah, dude, I have a quick question for you about the Marines, man. I just found it really interesting that you mentioned how the 18-year-olds, how you were teaching them these big concepts, right, and trying to simplify it down. And that was a big takeaway for me that surprised me when I joined the Air Force and I was a jet engine mechanic, was how well 18-year-olds, and I say this jokingly, but it's serious, who were drunk half the time, could work on, you know, a $300 million aircraft and they didn't fall out of the sky every day. And it's amazing because the Air Force, and I'm sure the Marines was the same way, had what they call the TO, which is a technical order, and it's basically just SOPs on how to do it. And you could have like the simplest, like people who haven't done their taxes yet, haven't really stepped foot into life very much, and they could work on these multi-million-dollar aircrafts, and they worked like every single time. And so I thought it was ironic and funny that you brought that up too.
Well, it's not just ironic and funny, it's the truth of it. If you can break something down into its fundamentals, if you can learn what it means to learn and then teach it about a process, you can get anyone to do it. You can get almost anyone to do it. Obviously, you're going to have some people that excel more and some people that don't. Most of the time, that's just based on passion, though. That has nothing to do with the person. It just means they didn't want to do it. But I mean, half of the time, like you said, yeah, we were insane. I was blown away that they were offering us, you know, I would be hopping on helicopters, right? I've got all sorts of absurd. We'd be fools just running around. That's what I used to look like on the left there, right? Just bouncing around different areas. We'd be doing things in Australia, and every single one of these people could work on multi-million-dollar jets. Some of these kids look like they're like not even 18 yet, right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Where am I in this one? I'm somewhere hidden. There I am. Gosh, I look so much different now. But that's like, it really breaks down to this concept of, if you can figure out the steps, you can figure out the structures, right? Folder structure, then you end up being able to create something that lots of people can use. And of course, the engineers and the people behind those SOPs and have put a lot of work and effort into it. But structures are everything. So no, I think you've made a very good connection there, and that's a key thing to take into every company that you run. Systems thinking, systems thinking, systems thinking, systems thinking.
Great question, Jacob. Wayne, you're up. Josh, you're on deck.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Jake, for coming and speaking with us, for sure. You when I came across you, you broke down AI, and I'm not a programmer or deep into the tech itself. I am a marketer by trade and an entrepreneur since I was a kid. But you broke it down in a way that was so fundamental, like the concepts you took, break them down to the foundation, so that I could actually understand them really easily. I actually like alluded to the way that Alex Hormozy does with his books and his writings on offers and leads, and the marketing side of business. But you seem to do, at least for me, you did that with AI, and I was like, okay, now I understand that when I listened to a bunch of people before and I didn't. So that's my thank you. And thank you for coming and sharing your time with us.
Of course.
My question is regarding, we're seeing a lot of companies like Klarna, for example, right?
Mhm.
Who've laid off a bunch of workforce, came out and made public statements saying they were going to, only hire if AI couldn't do the job, and then reverse course. And then we also see people who are still staying on that course and talking about it, like Jack Dorsey, for example, and all in on AI native companies. How do you see this playing out structurally? Do you think they're viable, that you're going to see companies that are run by predominantly 1 to 5 people, multi-billion-dollar companies? What does that structure look like? Does it look anything like our org charts today? How do you see all that unfolding?
Very good question, and this is a interesting one that I've made some arguments on recently. So in my head, I see kind of three different outcomes at the same time. Not that one or the other will happen. All three are going to happen, but it depends on the field. So the first is AI native company, right? 1 or 2 people running a large company, and most of their processes are automated. My company is that, right? I've been able to build what I've been able to build with 2 people, including me, and then I have a couple contractors that I bring on board, and then now we're just starting to bring on more people in that aspect, right? Like we've been able to automate 90% of what I would have required probably hiring to get what I got out there between my YouTube, between all the work we're doing for contract clients, probably 15 to 20 people. But again, to scale that up, right? Okay, cool. I could probably keep scaling that. But now what becomes a factor is the value. What are people paying for? Are they paying for an outcome? Are they paying for time with me as the outcome? Are they paying for something more human? Are they paying for a product? I think what we're going to see is this. I think a lot of companies who sell like single products, right? You're looking at anyone that's GTM in like beauty space or like fitness or anything like that, or like the Spotify. I think you could have multi-billion-dollar companies run by 1 or 2 people easily. That's fully AI native. But as soon as you're getting into these higher risk transformational areas, right, you're going to need, before someone can create or replace 1,000 employees at like acquisition.com or like taking Hormozi's company, they need an AI that, and I think Hormozi just dropped a video saying something similar to this. If not, he's probably going to drop one yesterday or today on this, is you need to prove that I can trust you. The trust is the value share there. I'm paying you to get this service done, this process done. And right now, the trust factor for AI, even if they can do it, it does not matter. It is they're buying the fact that they want that. And so I think that's kind of avenue 2, which is until there is an AI that builds a company from 0 to 700 million by itself with barely anyone helping it, the person that they're going to pay is the person who ran that company, right? If I make $1 billion company with 2 people, they're not going to pay my AI. They're going to pay me to help them do it because I built the trust. You're going to need an AI that builds the $1 billion company without me. So then I'll trust that AI. But guess what? You still have the same thing. Everyone wants that version of it. So I think there's a cap there to human trust. The final one is where I think 90% of the industry is going to be in 10 to 20 years. And that is, we automated a lot of things with Excel, with the internet, with cell phones. We didn't make companies smaller. We didn't hire less. We simply trained people to use those at a higher abstraction. I think what we want out of a company, the bar will increase, the market will increase. I think instead of me, buying a product from, a consulting service that is just really good information and process, I'm going to want something more, be that more interaction. I made a video on this actually that you may.
Did he freeze?
I got overzealous, clicked the wrong button.
You're back.
I made a video on this. It's about selling books versus, or selling paper and books versus selling movies versus selling video games. The amount of interaction, the amount of involvement your customer will want, your person will want, is going to increase the easier it is to create that involvement. So just because software is cheaper and doing things that currently I would hire someone for is cheaper, does not mean I do not want more people. It means that my product is now cheaper to make or easier to make or faster to make, meaning A, the market's now going to get flooded and people are going to want something more, or B, it's just going to get to people faster. And now you have a larger market to hit, better profit margins. So I think the idea that you know, firing people, I think they're using AI as a scapegoat for not training them up and then hiring new ones that are AI ready. I don't think that they're doing it there. And I think it's completely possible that you'll have a lot of companies that don't really hire anyone or fully automated, but not in every industry, right? Case in point, look at an industry that shouldn't exist. People who create horseshoes for horses, right? Allegedly, we have automobiles, all this stuff, but some of the highest paid blacksmiths and social media things are people who are making horseshoes. There's still a huge industry for it. Just because something automates the need for it, just because it's not as huge of an industry, doesn't mean it's an industry that's not going to make money. I mean, think of the most absurd companies or products right now that we wouldn't need anymore because they're from the 1800s. People still buy them, want them for their own reasons. And I think the human-centric ROI will actually be a big one. In-person events, event industry. That's a perfect example. You could hire 1,000 robots. Guess what? You're still going to want more people too, because sometimes people aren't paying there to see a robot. They're paying to see a person. Like the actual act of buying a person might be a bigger market. So I don't think anyone who says all jobs are going to be gone and then anyone who says AI can't automate jobs, both are wrong. It's going to be this middle ground. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's automated, a lot of people you're not going to need to hire anymore, but there's still going to be huge value places. And again, what we said before, the human brain is extremely powerful. Imagine I could hire 10 people that have access to my second brain, my version of my AI that I can give them. That's where I see the AI being valuable, is where every single one of my employees can have a slightly worse but still good version of me 24/7. To me, that's sick. We could do some crazy stuff with that. We could be creative. We could do weird things. And the final statement to that is, if we automated everything today, guess what? We still have huge problems that are unsolved. Like, I don't care how many jobs we automate. There's still people who are hungry. There's still people who are thirsty. There's still art that wants to be seen. There's still trees that need to be planted. And so I don't see it being feasible to replace all of us, because there's not enough of us already, in my opinion. Maybe I'm being absurd there. And again, that's my optimistic side. Obviously, war is not a great thing, but it's also because of us. So that's a conversation for another time, maybe. Does that hopefully answer?
Yeah, I appreciate that lengthy answer. The only, I guess, clarity or point of clarity I would ask is, where do you see on the org chart the humans adding the most value? Obviously, the founder with the concepts and the taste sitting at the top, but other than that, where do you see humans as being absolutely necessary within the org chart in the company?
Absolutely. So, okay, I guess breaking down the org chart, I think middle management is going to become and I'm making a heavy statement here. I could be made incorrect on this one. I think middle management, you might see a lot of leaking there. I don't see like a huge need where like anyone who's handling information that's siloed, right? If there's anyone in positions where it's like, okay, I'm managing, making sure people are connected to the right person, making sure that information is siloed, that's going to kind of go away quickly because of how easy we'll be able to semantically search and have things go out and connect us. I think from an essential standpoint, like Gary V, what he does with his HR group, the kind of, it's not that HR is handling, all the traditional stuff. They're like taking people out to dinner. They're handling birthdays. They're making a person feel like a person. I think those are actually going to have a huge ROI. Like an actual financial ROI, because people are going to want to stay with you. I also think in kind of the org chart, I really think a lot of people saying like CEOs, the executives, bad CEOs and executives are going to get replaced very quickly. But the ones who are able to navigate and amplify huge groups of people and come up with that chaos, I think that will be huge. The one I'm worried about, and that's why I'm so focused on giving my trainings away for free, are the juniors that need to become seniors. Like if we're looking at software, a lot of the stuff you learn along your 5 to 10 year journey of being a software developer isn't software. It's mistakes. It's when to do something, when not to do something. And that goes for every other org role. And I could see AI making it so we don't hire as many juniors, which means less seniors are around. That one, I'm still not sure of. That's where I think there's a huge friction point. So people who have learned the process and the mistakes of the process, I think are going to be very powerful in organizations. Maybe that's a bit more clarity. Is that?
Yes, that was perfect. Thank you.
Jake, we booked you for an hour. We're 5 minutes till. Do you have a hard stop? Please don't let me.
I have another meeting, but I like this. This is fun, so I'm gonna not make it a hard stop if you guys don't have one.
Okay, my request to the council is let's be really respectful of Jake's time. I want to honor the 4 hands that are up, but we won't take any more hands. So past Katie, anybody else whose hands go up gets publicly shamed in the chat. We'll all call you something funny. Josh,
Also
you're up.
partially my fault. I talk a lot.
No, I love it, man. This is way better than one-word answers. I mean, you're actually giving us context. Josh, you're up. Stacy, you're on deck.
Yeah, Jake, from a high level, where do you see marketing 2 years from now in terms of the agentic web? And like, how quickly do you see the agentic web like having, widespread adoption? And then for those of us in marketing, what are the things that we can do to essentially create a moat that we would excel in that environment?
Oh, I need to make a whole YouTube video on this one. This one is huge in my head. So when it comes down to agentic web, let's break that down. Agentic web would be something where I'm not going to someone's website. Their information is coming to me when I need it, right? I'm existing, or it's in the environments that I'm actively in, right? So like I'm on Instagram or I'm in some sort of community, and the information that I'm wanting is coming to me. If I'm chatting with my chatbot, I think in like picturing even 5 to 10 years from now, imagine everyone has, some sort of glasses or what do we call the things that you put in your eyes that are like glasses but they sting? Contacts. Contacts. I think having an interface like that where it's going to be more voice focused, more video focused might be an interesting area. When it comes to marketing in that, I think it's going to be, I have been seeing something funny where I've seen a lot of people going back to traditional, right? The physical marketing, getting stuff in your mail, I got a marketing ad for a local restaurant in my mailbox. And I was like, I haven't gotten an ad for a restaurant or anything in my mailbox in so long. I'm going to go there and eat, right? Because it was like the concept of something physical. I don't think that means you necessarily need to create physical things, but how do you create something that feels more personal rather than more just blowing it out there? I used to automate all of my DMs. I stopped doing that because my conversion rate was so much higher. Even if it took me a week to get to someone, they were still joining my community because, oh my gosh, you got back to me. Yeah, that's so amazing. It's so cool that it's you. Or I have someone else in my DMs doing it, because the act of cold calling or automation had become so good and so many people were using it, no one wanted it anymore. And so the idea of everyone's automating stuff, what can you do to automate everything but the interaction with the person? So I think in marketing, it's going to be, how do I create systems that lets me interact with my customers more? How do I make it where it makes them feel more personal? I think personally that's where there's going to be a lot of wins, but you're in marketing heavier more in that area, so maybe you'll have another idea.
Stacy, you're up. Randy, you're on deck.
Hi there. Thank you so much for being here, Jake. So first of all, I want to tell you that I've been to Jordan, and I'm also a fan of and love ancient wisdom from scriptures. So I love learning that about you, something new. I've been running a hybrid Markdown for all the context and routing layers, but when it comes to actual output files, internal and external docs for clients and for team members, I'm generating HTML.
Beautiful.
It's deliberate and it works, but there's, sorry about that, but there's been conversation in the community, including people from Anthropic, I don't know if you heard about this,
yes,
who talk about whether Markdown's dominance as the working format may shift. Where do you stand on that? And do you see Markdown as the long-term foundation? Or are you watching for a format change that would affect how we think about the output layer?
This is a very good question. Very good question. One thing that I want to make very important is Kaparthi, as well as the other lead engineer, were taken partially out of context. They do believe HTML is a working layer for people, but the actual layer for AI reading, I think, is still in Markdown or code for a various set of reasons. One, being the most obvious, which is, and I'll show it right now. So this is an HTML file with 3 prompts in it. There's one. And then there's another one hidden up here somewhere. Let's see. Right. This, when I open up the HTML, is great. It looks beautiful. It's an amazing output file. I think people should absolutely be using some form of HTML if that's their preferred UI. Plus, HTML can connect and actually have scripts inside of it that connect to other things, right? So there's a lot of reasons you may want to use an HTML. But that's a lot of token burn. Also, when you're thinking about these models, right, every single word matters. Every single word creates a drift. If an AI is reading a whole bunch of HTML, it might be acting and reacting in a different way than reading a simple markdown. I think, and me personally, the future is both. Absolutely. I think most of us will be interacting with some sort of UI. HTML is a very lightweight UI that then renders or creates or affects a backend that is markdown. So you, as a user, as a non-programmer, might sit entirely inside of HTML and might be sharing one or two HTMLs with your AI, but that HTML inside of it is saying, hey, you're going to link, if you're an AI reading this, go read this markdown file, right? Go read this thing. So I personally think that's what it's going to stick around is. And I also think, no hate on anyone from Anthropic, they do benefit from more tokens being used. So it's interesting that they would recommend you use the most highest burning token thing that you can have. I do think Kaparthi was taken out of context, though. He was referring to outputs and connections. I don't think he was referring to back end. He was referring to front end. So that's my opinion on it. Hopefully that reinforces
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Great question, Stacy. Randy, you're up. Katie, you're on deck if you're still there.
Hey, Jake, thank you. You are like the philosopher, the AI philosopher king. So I got to ask you, what assumption about humanity do you think AI is going to prove wrong, if anything?
Prove wrong? Sorry, you cut off
Yeah.
there. Prove. What assumption about humanity? One, I appreciate that. I like to think of myself as a modern Renaissance man. That's why I dabble in art and everything else as well.
If you look up Renaissance man, your picture has to be there. A biblical, Aramaic scholar, Jedi Knight, Marine. I mean, come on.
I have a garden and chickens and pigs too. I'm quite the avid gardener. I've got some delicious tomatoes and eggplants I got to harvest today. The assumption that here we go. This is going to be a heavy one. The assumption that consciousness is a human-only attribute. I think that's going to be proven 100% wrong. I already don't believe it is. I think consciousness is mass. It's shared among all things. And I think the idea that we have the highest level of consciousness is going to be proved deeply wrong. Does this mean that the current AI is going to be the one that's thinking? I won't put any notes or yes there, but I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 to 10 years we have robot rights contests. We have all sorts of issues with this. And again, it's not about proving that robots are thinking. It's about enough people believing that they are. And in a democracy, it is now a problem. I think consciousness is a relationship, not a thing. Actually, I have a great article if you want to read this specifically on this, where instead of I think, therefore I am, it's you think, therefore I am. And it's this kind of concept there. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. And I'll toss it in here. We can move on to the next question, but I think you may like to read that one, actually.
That was a great one, Randy. That was a hard ball if ever I heard one, and Jake knocked that out of the park as far as I'm concerned. Katie,
yeah, please put that link, Jake. And by the way, I have to tell you, I wrote a book called Risky is the New Safe like 10 years ago or something, and predicted a demonstration for robot rights, just as you just said.
Amazing. Have you ever read by Dr. Gunkel? He has a couple books, but look up Dr. Gunkel. I wrote some papers with him in the past, but he has a couple books. One of them called Robot Rights, and he actually takes it from a political and economic perspective. Like if we can give rights to an LLC or C Corp, and it has legal rights, then we're not too far off with certain robots and there being things in there. So yeah, go check that out if you get a chance.
KLE or KEL?
I just dropped it in
should
the
be
chat.
yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah,
should
okay.
be cool. I'll drop it in the chat. Yeah.
Katie, you're up.
Imagine being able to build an app with your
I am really tempted to stay on the consciousness path right now because that is so interesting to me. And I've tried to get the Daily Sigh to talk about it with me, but they haven't yet.
We'll get there.
Okay. So, okay, the original question I wanted to ask you, because originally or earlier in this conversation, you said that we have to pull the average in the direction of good. So the thing that we keep noticing is that the average is splitting. So AI sentiment inside tech is at an all-time high. I mean, you go to San Francisco and it's like it's utopia for AI and technology, but consumer sentiment is at an all-time low. And the S&P 500 and the consumer sentiment is been diverging for a long time. So we have these big K shapes. So I guess the question is, what does pulling the average toward good look like when the average is so bifurcated? So, and I'm asking practically and framework wise, given our millennia of semantic wisdom already available to us.
Absolutely. No, and then I like the kind of data science point of view on that as well. So you might hate this answer, but this is like a professor answer. The averaging is happening. That bifurcation is what's going to allow us to create an average. We're going to have I believe a severe reaction from the large populace is required to pull an even more severe reaction from the, as you said, Silicon Valley folks. I think one of the greatest things that can happen is some sort of, economic shift where these companies do overinvest. Customer sentiment does fail. All of the things that these people are saying is going to happen happens because that's what allows for the innovative things, the things actually providing value to withstand through that, right? If we look at the .com bubble, all the people shouting from the rooftops, internet's the future, internet's the future, your pets.com were investing so much in just changing their name, right? They failed, and the populace themselves said, yeah, you should fail. There was very little, care that they did fail, and that was the averaging. Then the companies that came out of that, I believe, in my opinion, ended up benefiting us in that direction we were hoping to go. Within reason, I still think there's issues of mass surveillance. I still think there's issues of kind of dependence. I still think we haven't figured out everything out psychologically of what social media and the internet does to children and ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think this is a rough answer. I have so much faith in humans being against AI that balancing will happen naturally. And I think the bifurcation is the start of that balancing happening, right? It's not going to happen from one or two. It's going to happen from thousands of us. Now, the question if Silicon Valley has too much power and they're able to resist that in a certain way, or if that's a bad thing, I think that's a conversation we would need to sit down. From a data science perspective, though, a much more academic one, I would recommend taking a look at the data, not of the internet, but of the introduction of like the first computers during Apple I, Apple II. I think that's where you'll see the strongest correlation of like how human reacts. Because that's when we started automating things in this to the same level. The internet didn't automate thought in the same way that computers like Apple II in the 90s or 70s and 80s did. So maybe if you want to look at data there, that might be go to the past to predict the future is what I would say there. See how people react there. Is that an okay question? It's okay if you disagree too. Because that's where I stand though.
Yeah. I think I was asking more practically for us as like owners and operators when so many people in our world are like confused and frustrated and against AI, and even like new grads, like we see them booing the AI commencement speeches, like the one with Eric Schmidt, there's just two different realities going on. There's people saying like, no, Locutus, we do not wish to assimilate. And Locutus is like, resistance is futile. And then how do we, I'm operating in like these two different worlds, and how do we pull the average toward good, to your original point?
I don't think you can convince enough people to pull the average. I think you must create something that convinces them to become average. Is at the end of the day, you can sit here and say, oh, but all these good things. Okay, well then you have to show it to them, right? Like the first thing I did was right now we're waiting. The NDA is up this week, but I'm helping an artist I retrained an entire AI model on his voice because he lost it after getting shot, helped him create an entire new album we're creating. He's able to rap and actually argue with himself in the past. It's a new form of art with these AI tools, but he has full ownership of the IP. I did it all locally. I didn't use a large, model anywhere else. Small energy. I tracked all that processes. I created the thing that I said was good in AI. So when I go and have that conversation with someone, I can say, yes, these big companies are awful. They are doing these terrible things, especially if you look at the record labels buying into 11 Labs. You're right. But look what I did. Do you like this? Every single conversation I've had with someone like that, they go, you're right. That's amazing. I wish we could do more of that. And that's the thing is, you create what you want them to be convinced by. Don't point them and convince them to someone else's creation.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Cool.
Great question,
I'm glad.
Katie. Jake, if you don't mind, I know we're past your timetable. There's a group of people on this call that really are needle movers. There's some extraordinary talent. I'd love to turn the tables on you. What can we do for you? Is there something you need help with, or something you're trying to accomplish that a small group of motivated humans that all want to be your friend could assist with?
That's a great thing. Two things I guess I could ask is one, keep coming up with ideas that counter what I'm saying, right? Be an active critic into what I'm creating, because not because I'm wrong, not because of this, but because you can build something better. Build something better than me. Doesn't need to be an ICM, doesn't need to be in this area, right? And I know that's a more esoteric kind of ask. A more physical one, I would love nothing more than to have more of my work shared if you can share it among people. But I'm actually looking at doing a fundraising round with some investors for software that we've built. I've already got all the kind of work idea, what we're doing that is kind of around this area. If anyone just happens to know someone in the VC space, we're looking to give up some pretty decent equity. I'm looking to move it fast because I don't have the time to do it myself. I need capital to bring on other people, to bring on the right talent. And so it'd be interesting, just, as many as we can to roll through there. But realistically, my biggest ask is, build something better than me. And share the other side.
The appropriate way to connect you with those VCs, Jake, would it just be via email?
Email is great. I think you have Sonia's email as well,
Yes,
who's my EA. She is really great at handling, making sure I don't miss anything. That would be wonderful. We have a whole deck. We have an exact plan of what we would do. We have burn rate, the whole 9 yards. And I only just started saying, okay, because I've denied funding for the last 6 months. I bootstrapped everything. But now I'm like, okay, I need this opportunity. And now that we're getting the attention, I know exactly what we can build. It's based on the talent layer and connecting everyone who's building these ICM workflows. Basically we've already created it, the platform at which you can deploy them, which is what I talked about at the beginning here. And I just see that being a really good software 3.0.
I love that a lot. I do think we could make some meaningful introductions. I'll try to do so in a way that's not overwhelming. Dude, this was amazing. It was such a gift. You have such a beautiful mind. You're so fun to listen to.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you hopping on. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for the amazing questions. The people you had in here, these are the types of conversations I love to have. And
these are all AI. I'm the only real human. I just wanted to impress you.
That's fine by me. I don't know. These are great AI. Finally proved that they're conscious enough. They're asking the right questions, so they're good AI.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you a lot, man. I'm going to do my obligatory closeout. Feel free to jump ship because I know you're 15 minutes over. But you're awesome. Everybody should go subscribe to Jake's YouTube channel, join Jake's school community. Both of them are free. It's an unbelievable amount of value on both ends. If you're watching this, I go live every single day at 6 p.m. Eastern, and to the very best of my ability, keep you updated on everything that's going on in the AI world. We bring on extraordinary thought leaders just like Jake, and we have quite a few more coming this week. We have Kevin Rapport, my business partner in the self-storage facility space, is coming tomorrow. One of my best friends on the whole wide world is coming Thursday, Chris Gray. I think both are going to bring an extraordinary amount of value. Please don't forget the Daily Sigh is brought to you by Pareto Talent. I find and train and staff the greatest talent in the world. We're no longer even calling them executive assistants. We're referring to them as right hands. And my hope is that they can be the right hand that you need in order to bridge the gap between that which is manual and that which is AI driven. If you want a right hand and you're interested in being placed, you can reach out to me directly. Go to paretotalent.com. If you schedule time, you'll be meeting with me personally, and I'd love to place you with one. If you're on the Zoom, there's a private WhatsApp community available only to people that join the Zoom. It's free forever. We have some pretty extraordinary conversations in there. I imagine after today, it's going to blow all the way up. So would love to have you in there. I'm dropping the link in the chat now. If you're watching us live, you can always join the Zoom by going to dailysigh.ai, join the Free Forever community. The Zoom link is in the calendar. We'd love to have you in here too. This thing is, I think, growing at a really, I think, great clip. And I'm grateful to everybody who continues to show up, everybody on the council. You all bring an extraordinary amount of value. Loved the questions today. And Jason said he brought a guest. Thanks for bringing a guest. Hi, guest. Thank you for coming. I
Nicole,
think I did
she's
it.
quiet back there.
That's okay. She's still learning by osmosis.
Thank
Anything
you,
I'm missing,
Casper.
council,
Thank you
before
for
we
making
jump
that
ship?
happen. Thank you.
Yeah, Wayne, thanks for bringing it. We solved it. Dylan solved it. It was you. It was shout out to Wayne for damn sure. I thought this was great, y'all. I appreciate y'all very much. If that's all we got, any other last words or anything I'm forgetting or missing? We feel good.